All right. Hey, everybody. I apologize. That was a bit crazy trying to get on Webinar Jam today. I want to start off and let me just quickly share with you my screen and get you guys to see what I'm seeing. Hopefully, not that craziness. So, let me get rid of this. I'm I'm in a new remote location right now, so I'm struggling a little bit to get everything going at once. And so I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys a little bit about me, a little bit about what I've been doing, and then ultimately I want to show you guys something that's helped me out immensely. So um, with the work that I've been doing with digital marketing, online creation for the past few years, my life's got increasingly complicated as I've had my son, well, I should say my wife had my son. And so I've had to find ways to really streamline how I do things. And so the one way that I've done that has been trying to find efficient ways to really create content that allows me to get new opt-ins, get new leads without spending a ton of time creating brand new content. I was doing a lot of blogging and sending people to my website, which was converting pretty well, but the opt-in was fairly generic. So this is going to be a fairly quick hit webinar because of some of the technical issues that I'm running into. I may not be able to show you some of the things that I wanted to, but I'll go through what it is that I've been doing and how it's worked, and then we can go from there. So, like I mentioned, I'm a dad of three, 2-year-old boy who's awesome. He's hilarious. Just went to Sesame Place and loved it. Twin girls on the way. Little amazing and scary surprise. We're super excited, but I'm still straddling a corporate job. I still work a 9 to 5, so I fit in what I'm doing to build my business on the side. So that means I have limited time, but I am creative. I'm passionate about what I do. I love helping, teaching, and connecting with others. And folks who've seen me on Facebook and elsewhere, Instagram, you can kind of see what I do. And I do a lot of coaching, consulting, and online course creation. So who am I? I'm in marketing full time. Worked with top brands across the US and globally, featured on social media today, owner, print and news. I taught online marketing at MIT. I'm pretty proud of that. That was a pretty big accomplishment. I ran a group in Boston, the chairman of the Boston Online Marketing and Advertising Group, which got me the gig teaching at MIT. So I taught a bunch of folks way smarter than me about marketing and online marketing and how to simplify it down. And then I have some friends locally that I mentioned there. So the end result is I'm not a graphic designer, not a guru, definitely not independently wealthy, but I am frugal marketer. I love to be creative, and I love to systematize everything. So this is a hard truth that I had to face. I struggle to ask for things from other people. That's a general flaw, character flaw, I guess you could say. Hate asking for money, emails, opt-ins. I love to give, give, give. The problem is that you can't sustain that. And so ultimately, I realized that when I can create a product of value that you're proud of, it's easy to ask. So when you create something that you're really, really proud of, it's easy to ask somebody to opt in, give you their email address, give you their money, because ultimately you know that you've done a service to them and it's something that they need. And so in this, I'm going to give you a quick example of what type of lead magnets work from my experience and some other folks that I've talked to. Examples of a good lead magnet, sorry, not maggot, that would be horrifying. And a secret hack that I stumbled on, to drive 100 opt-ins a day. I hate using words like secret, but ultimately, I don't see a lot of people doing this effectively. And so I want to share that with you because it's working for me. And then how to create your own lead magnets without expensive software or graphic designer. I know Canva's come out with Canva for Work and they're doing all these cool things, but I've actually found that you don't really need Canva or any software like that. if you create templates that you can easily edit using this method that I'm going to show you. So first of all, we're going to make this a super quick hit webinar. It's 12:13 now. By 12:30, this webinar will likely be over. It's not going to be a pitch webinar or anything crazy. I just want to share this quick hit with you, let you get back to your lunch, get back to your day. But ultimately, what lead magnets don't work? So I struggled with lead magnets in the beginning, getting online, ambiguous, complicated, or long content. So let's dig into that. So ambiguous is kind of like this picture here, right? Join my newsletter. Once a month, you're going to get all my updates. Okay, well, what's the value of that? How do you quantify what that is? 365-page ebooks, that's too long. That is ridiculous. You think it's hugely valuable, but it's ultimately too much content. Courses dripped out over weeks. I did this. The opt-ins were actually great. The conversions were not so good because people didn't really get the actions that they needed to right away, and they had to wait for the next week's content. And ultimately, by the time I had anything to give them, they were already kind of on to the next thing. And that brings me to the complicated or multi-part content. Simple, actionable things. Your ask has to be in line with what your promise is. So if your promise is too overblown, like you're going to grow their business by 3,000% by using blah 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 blah, and it's far too complicated, well, that's too much of an ask or too much of a promise that they don't believe. But if you tell them how you're going to save them 3 hours a day by auto scheduling their posts on social media using a free tool, well, that's a better ask. Why does all this stuff not work? Ultimately, from my experience, it's overwhelming the lead. So that person doesn't want to give you their time to figure out if you're worth it to them. It's too much of a commitment, and you have to show value first and quickly. They're giving you their email address, and they want to see if you're worth it. They're kind of testing the waters, and they're questioning whether you're worth it or not, and they ultimately don't know. So you got to give them something that they can consume in minutes. Obviously, when you download a few things I'll show you in the next page, you can implement them immediately. It's not something you have to wait, consume content, and assess whether you're worth it or not. So what works well? So on the right's an example of something that actually works really well for someone I know. It's an 11-point perfect sales funnel checklist, and it's free. So obviously your opt-in is free, but what's important is it's a checklist for something that somebody actually wants. So it's short, fast, and actionable. So you can go through the checklist and you can say, okay, did I hit this? Did I hit this? Did I hit this? And you're getting value immediately. Resource list. This is something I've had a huge win with, is my 6 essentials for online course creators. It's 6 tools that people can use to get up and running with their online courses fast. It's something that they can look at the list, immediately go check out these tools. Most of them are free, and start getting value out of that. Brain maps are another one that folks like Kim Roach, who's a great marketer, she does 10-minute marketer podcast. She uses brain map giveaways all the time successfully. And if you're trying to map out a concept that you want to give somebody, a blueprint, a brain map is a good way to get them to immediately see how everything fits together. It's basically like a bubble chart that connects each idea to each other, and sometimes it's a flow, and that gives them a baseline, but it doesn't give them everything they need to implement all of it. A one-page process is another one. So if you have a process, and I'll show you an example of that, if you have a process that maybe it's 5 steps to become a better blogger, then that's something very actionable, as long as the tips on that page kind of flow together. So it's something that they can consume very quickly. So low investment. So what that means is the person doesn't need to invest a lot of time to get the value, and provide a quick win. So it's something they can do now, will get results, and it's fairly low risk. So even if they download it and they didn't have to do anything, they're not spending a lot of time figuring out whether you're worth it or not. So there's only a couple slides here, so I'm going to talk mostly to this. The secret to getting 100 new leads a day is ultimately to provide hyper relevant lead magnets. So you need to provide these. The secret is really providing these in a place that people are already sold on you. They're already sold on your expertise, and they're already sold on your content because they've consumed it. So that seems a little backwards, right? They're sold on your content. How did they consume your content? Well, I'm not going to tell you to do this. You can do this on your own site, but I'll tell you that this is most effective if you use other people's sites. And they need to feel that you're already credible, and they need to feel like the hyper relevant. That really means that it's exactly what you're talking about at the time and they're interested in is what you're providing. So most of your lead magnets right now are going to be join now to get whatever lead magnet you created 6 months ago on your website. That's great. And I did that for a long time. I would drive people to my website and I would have them download my generic lead magnet and I would hope the traffic would convert. The problem with that was that I didn't know where they were coming from, so it wasn't customized to the source of the content. So, for example, my 6 essential tools for online course creators is great, but I also teach other things and write articles about things that aren't explicitly about tools for online courses. If I was writing an article about tools for online courses and then at the end I said, here's 6 essential tools you have to have, that's hyper relevant. So let's look at that. So step 1 is ultimately to submit a guest post to a large site. So this is why I say on somebody else's site. So in this case, this is an article on business to community. And I'm going to give you this kind of tip. Business to community is a very open to new contributors. It's a place where they have broad categories, at least in the marketing space, and it's easy and fast post approval. So once you get one article on there, you get admin access, or I should say contributor access to their back end to actually submit all your blog posts or articles separately through that manual back end. And then they go through an approval process. And more often than not, they are actually approved as long as they're good quality. So I've been using business to community for quite a few years. I didn't really use them effectively, though. I was posting blog posts and articles that were not necessarily bringing me a ton of new traffic, or I should say a ton of new traffic that converted. They were bringing me through my bio. Typically, you have the article, and then at the bottom, I don't have it shown here, you have a bio. And if it's a good bio, it'll hook people in. But what I found was actually by creating a clear call to action for my article that is specific to that was a way that I really, cranked up my opt-ins. So this is really the secret, right? So large, it could be any large post. Like if I'm here, it could be the Huffington Post, if you get that. It could be Entrepreneur Mag. It could be, healthyjuicing.com. It could be whatever your relevant site is for your business. But then at the end, some business community allows you to put images in, and this is an image link that tied directly into the topic that my last bullet was on the article. So I was actually talking about all the tips to simplify and amplify your social media. And then at the end, I had a hyper relevant opt-in. This is the only place that this, or it started out with being the only place that I had this opt-in. I created it specifically for this article. That's what hyper relevance is. So you're actually creating an opt-in that is exclusive to an article that you're posting on a large site. So the person has read your article, they love what you have to say, they get to the end, and there's an opt-in that's magically the exact thing that they just bought into, and it's from you. So you can also do this more effectively, and I don't have an example here because I'm having issues with accessing some of the network stuff. At the end of the post or within the content of the post, you can actually create a text link. So for example, if I'm talking about, my friend Kamanzi did this very well on Entrepreneur. He actually had an article where he put in I think it was the 3 or 5 mistakes people make when hiring a coach. or why you shouldn't hire a coach. Within that, he actually put a link to his coaching program in one of the last bullets. And people clicked that, actually became customers, opted into his list, and hired him. Actually joined his program that he linked directly to from there. So that's sort of one example. In the case of some other articles I've done, what I like to do is I like to give 3 to 5 reasons to do X, whatever it is. So in my case, it's marketing. So for example, a Facebook post might be the 3 best ways to leverage Facebook groups to grow your list. And within that, it would have a bullet which would talk about the types of posts to put into a Facebook group. And within that, that bullet, it would actually say, these are 3 to 4 more examples for posting in Facebook groups, and it would have a link that would go directly to it. And so because I can't get on the network properly here, I can't really show you that, but that's the idea. And I apologize. I will definitely send you guys a better video after the fact of this, showing you in real time. So the image ads are only allowed on certain sites. Business or community allows it. It's fine. Entrepreneur and those other large sites are not going to allow you to do that, but they will allow text in context text links. So this is an example. So when I say, average of 100 users a day, what that means is your posts generally last from 5 to 7 days. So if you did this and you had business or community will publish your stuff back to back to back to back, you can keep this up constantly. But truthfully, what you end up with is, 5 to 7 days is about what a post will bring you, truthfully bring you opt-ins in my experience. And so you end up with, an average of 100 a day. So it's actually weighted more in the beginning when you get greater exposure, and then it kind of dies off after the fact. I've had some that have gone longer where they've been picked up on other sites, but it's really a matter of how the website, how much content gets published on the website and how frequently you do this. So the hardest part of this whole process is creating attractive lead magnets without spending weeks at a time. So I get one nap time to create this stuff. That's what I give myself. Truthfully, I could spend weeks creating these opt-ins and articles, but the reality is I write most of my articles, and this is kind of a bonus tip. I write most of my articles in a way that's probably dangerous, but driving. So I get in the zone when I'm driving home or driving somewhere and I'm alone in the car. I'm not really listening to music all that often. If I'm not listening to a podcast, or even if I am and I get an idea, I stop, open up Evernote, and I actually use my iPhone, my Siri microphone, and I tap the microphone next to the keyboard, and I will actually dictate in the article idea that I have. Sometimes I just put in the title and a quick paragraph description, but a lot of times I'll actually write the entire article by speaking it into Evernote and save it there. And then I do some light editing after the fact, but it's actually pretty good once you know the voice commands to use for quotes and bold and all that other stuff. You can do it. So then I've got a completely written post from just driving home. So now I've got to create my opt-in that is hyper relevant to that article. So now I'm going to, for example, an article that I'm writing right now that has to do with, I guess I brought up the Facebook groups one, but happy social marketing. So it's an article that I wrote which shows examples of what types of posts will actually get greater engagement on Facebook. So if you go to some of these big wigs websites, they don't have, or Facebook walls, they don't have the level of engagement that you would expect, even some of the top marketers. But if you look at some of the posts that I've had and my clients have had, they get a lot of engagement, which gives them a lot of goodwill, and it's kind of a billboard for them. And so I created an article about that, that we're trying to get published on HuffPost. And the opt-in for that is going to be 7 social media post templates for them to download. And it would be in the actual last example, a call to action, which says if they're for 3 for 7 more examples that you can use today, click here. And in that case, we might disguise it a little bit more than that because the HuffPost is a little bit specific. But if I was doing that on social media today or business community, that would be completely fine. And that drives them to a landing page where they can opt in for that. But like I said, getting that opt in to look good, attractive lead magnet, and convert, because ultimately you're going to get the opt in. But if you have a crappy, ugly lead magnet, nobody's going to actually think you're credible and want to buy it. And that's one of the 3 mistakes that I commonly see is that people will create things that have a great promise but are pretty ugly, and so they don't end up doing anything or converting because if it looks this bad when you download it, why do I want to give you the credibility that your product or your online course or whatever it is you're doing is any good? So creating the lead magnet is really one of the most important pieces. So I've created templates using Google Drive. So they can be edited on PowerPoint or Google Drive. And this is the part that I'm really sad that I can't show you because it's giving me, let me try it real quick here. It's giving me errors. Yeah, so it's struggling where I'm at. So I apologize. I'm going to send you guys, I'm not going to offer what I had listed here. Because ultimately I can't show you what I've done, but I will try to show you the lead magnets that I have created, the finished versions of them. So this is my flagship sort of lead magnet, and I'm able to modify and edit this lead magnet on the fly, the template for this lead magnet very, very easily in Google Drive. So if you don't know Google Drive, it allows you to create documents. It allows you to create presentations. And I use the presentation feature just like PowerPoint. So I format my slide so it's 8.5 by 11. I insert a background that's gray. I put my image over the top, and then I insert text boxes that allow me to create my title. That's very easy to modify. And I create a call to action text here with a button that links out to the next step that I want them to take. This is an image that was created elsewhere. So your top level images could be very, very simple. Or you can, you can go to fiverr.com or somewhere to create this type of an image at the top. And then all of this text is editable. These images, you can just copy and paste from Google and paste them in, move them around. I have versions of this that I use with checklists. So I have a checklist version. I have a process flow version. I have a couple other variations of this depending on what I'm trying to do. So sometimes this is too cluttered, so I have an even simpler version that I use for clients. And so ultimately the trick is to make these things easy and quick is that I've created these Google Drive templates like this that you just type over the text, you drag in your images, and you type over the existing stuff that's there, and you have your lead magnet, and you save it as a PDF just like this, and you are ultimately done with creating the lead magnet, which most people struggle with, or they just create this ugly PDF document that nobody really wants to act on after the fact. So to go back to let me just make sure I don't have, I will give you one other tip. I also create my images in that same Google Drive. So this is a PowerPoint presentation PDF where I've created a PDF of a single slide of a presentation. I keep it very simple. I have this bar across here. This image here, I actually downloaded from the web on a free site, put it in the background, put a gray sheet over it, transparency over it, and then I have this text here, and I type right over it anytime I want to make a new image. So that's another way that I use presentation software. So I think the trick ultimately is to create these really quickly, use a PowerPoint presentation template, And because we're having all these issues, anyone on the webinar who signed up, I will actually send you one of my templates so you can go ahead and modify and use it as you wish. I was originally planning on selling you guys, pitching you guys on my other templates, but I don't feel right given that I can't show you all the things I wanted to show you. But I didn't want to leave you hanging on the webinar. I wanted to make sure you had everything that the secrets that I was talking about. So let's go back here. So ultimately, the steps are you want to submit a guest post to a large site. Again, business to community is a great one for marketers. There's a lot of other ones. The trick there is just to go on, type your genre or your niche, and then type in contributor or guest post, and you'll usually come up with how you contribute. Business community is very open. Within your article, make sure you have a link to almost an extension of the article as your opt-in. So it's a checklist that helps you do exactly what you did in the article. And sometimes even just taking the article and making it into a checklist is enough, because people don't take the articles and save them, right? But they'll download an opt-in and save that if it's in that same information in a more usable format. That's worked extremely well. And just make sure that it's relevant and hyper local, and then use Google Drive or another tool, like I said, like this, to create beautiful lead magnets. And as far as offering the lead magnet, I don't get bent out of shape with how the landing page is designed. I mean, everybody does. I personally feel like when you're doing this type of work, I've actually used MailChimp's pop-up link to actually offer it without even creating a landing page. So and maybe I can show you this. If you go to MailChimp, and let me make sure I remember how to get into MailChimp here. I always forget my password here. So if you go into, let me just see here. Let me just see. So this is the wrong account, but that's all right. I'm gonna go to this isn't even the same one. This is my old trial. I'm the wrong account here, but let's go back to an old link. If I go to the sign up forms, you can go through and embed forms, which is what most people do to put in their website, or you can do a subscriber pop-up. So if we go to the subscriber pop-up, you can customize it all you want, desktop or mobile, and then generate the code here. So the script, oh, actually, I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted. Let me see here. General forms. So if we go to general forms here we go. Sign up form URL. So if I wanted to do I'll go back here to show you. So if I wanted to do a general forms, I click select here, and then I go here to sign up form URL, and I can then use that link as the link from the text opt-in. So basically I have my article. I have, click here to download this checklist. They click it, and that link is where it takes them. And then, this isn't going to be formatted well. But if you click it, it takes you to the opt-in form right there. They can enter their information and then opt in. And so I think ultimately these are just as effective if you do some customization to them, to the colors, than a lot of the other crazy landing pages that you're going to try to test. If you wanted to do a lead pages page, those are always great. But ultimately, remember that you've provided something hyper relevant, so you really don't have to resell them on a landing page once you've done it. So ultimately, that is that is all we're going to cover today. And I know it's sort of quick hit because I'm not able to walk you through the individual steps of creating the lead magnet. And I wanted to get quite a bit of information to you as quickly as I could. And I want you to get back to your lunch. So I'm not going to pitch anything, but I'm going to send you guys specific replay of what or video of what I do to create these lead magnets. And I'm going to send you one of the lead magnet templates so you can go ahead and get started and use it for yourself. All right, guys. So that is it. Oh, let me stop this. And I will see you guys on the internet.